This week on Previews World Weekly, Attack on Titan attempts a world record. We discuss our favorite women in comics, and special guest Comicstorian joins us to talk about Bloodshot. It's all happening right now on Previews World Weekly.
Happy Mario Day, everyone. I just found out apparently it's Mario Day. Welcome to Previews World Weekly. It is Wednesday. It is New Comic Book Day, which means it is time for Previews World Weekly. I'm one of your hosts, Lola Bunny.
Oh, no, I can't. I don't have it in me.
We're not even going to go there, so it's okay.
I will light the internet on fire. I don't want to hear anybody's whack comments about Lola Bunny. Keep it to yourself.
Keep it to yourself. Keep it to yourself. No, I'm not interested. Like, of all the things I want to talk about this week, that's definitely not on the list. But Ashton, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Ashton, a.k.a. the Duchess of Free Comic Book Day. And I'm going to take over the show really quick. I'm going to usurp this because I got some stuff I need to say.
Oh, yeah.
About Free Comic Book Day. So,
not Lola Bunny.
First and foremost, no Lola Bunny. First and foremost, here is your weekly reminder. Free Comic Book Day is happening this year, August 14th, Saturday, August 14th, at your local comic shop. We're a little later than normal in hopes that a lot of the disruption from COVID-19 will be behind us, but we were back to a single day event, August 14th. Secondly, next week we have an entire slew of announcements coming out. Most importantly, perhaps we'll be announcing all of the books next week. Just so to give you guys a quick rundown here, Monday the 15th, we'll be announcing all of the exclusive toys and collectibles you can get on Free Comic Book Day. Tuesday the 16th will be your gold sponsor titles. And then Wednesday the 17th will be your silver sponsor titles. And then Thursday the 18th will be announcing our commemorative artists and their art for our 20th anniversary.
There you go. And that is why they call her the Duchess of Free Comic Book Day, guys, because she knows where the dates are. She's got the talent. She's got the plan. She knows what's up. So, yeah, write it down, remember it, and we'll remind you guys every week because that's what we're here to do. It's one of the reasons we're here. Ashton, we have a special guest this week, but it's not the one that I'm gonna that you think it is. Can you show us your grimace?
Yeah. Look at him.
So you want to give Johnny a thank you in front of everybody for his.
I took him out of the box. Yeah. So a couple weeks ago, Johnny texted me. He's like, "Hey, I'm at Target. I found Grimace," and I was like, "Hold on, I need to have a moment." He's like, "Do you want me to get it?" I was like, "Yes, I do." So he got me Grimace. I have been gifted a Grimace. Tell me he doesn't look like a nug. He is in chicken nugget form and thrilled about it.
We have confirmed that. He is a chicken nugget. I don't know why he's purple, but he is a chicken nugget. So there you go. Ashton's happy. Everybody's happy. And now there's another reason to be excited, guys, because we do have an actual special guest on the show, not just Grimace. I guess Grimace is going to be our third man now. He's going to be our fourth man. He's going to be on our show every week. But you guys know who this guy is. His name is Comicstorian, and he's going to join us this week. But we call him Benny too. What's up, Benny? How's it going, man?
Hey. Not bad. I had no idea how this StreamYard thing worked. So I was like, oh, I'm on something.
Yeah. We told you, man. It's very dirt simple. That's one of the reasons we love it. Like, it takes all the guesswork out of everything. So, yeah. So, Benny, thanks for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. You have a book out this week. It's Bloodshot number 12. You're doing a backup story in it. We're going to ask you about that a little bit later when we do What's at Comic Shops. But for people who are not familiar with Comicstorian, right, can you tell them a little bit about your channel?
Basically, I run a YouTube channel where we recap all the current comic books that are coming out and some classics and some stuff. Like, basically, we just recap them all. We do it in a dramatic fashion with a way for people to catch up on their favorite comic books. Basically, so you can then go out and buy the next one. We try to encourage people to get the next portion of the story, but with so many books out every week, it's always difficult to keep up to date with them. And if you can hear my cat, I'm sorry.
It's all good. Isn't that the first time we've had a cat pop up on the show? So it's all good. Matter of fact, we've had cats walk into frame, so it doesn't even matter.
She's right there. I opened up these cases because we're moving, so there's like a weird glare in them right now, and now she just sees something that she can't get up to.
Oh, okay. That's a recipe for disaster. We'll see how this works out the next hour.
You see Iron Man fall over.
Right. You know exactly what it is. So, Benny, we asked this. I always ask this of our guests, and I haven't actually done this in a while. But I wanted to ask you, how did you get into comics? Like, what is your origin story when it comes to actually becoming a comic book reader?
As far as just a traditional reader, my dad was a huge comic book fan. He was a big fan of Superman when I was a kid. So he'd always have all the Superman books. And I actually read Superman time and time again initially to get kind of into comic books. But it was the storyline Armageddon 2001, way back in the DC era, where they had Wave Rider looking at all the futures. That really got me hooked on reading comic books themselves.
Okay, nice. So how long does it take to like make those scripts for like the show? Like, I mean, you're recapping entire arcs. Like, how long does that take? What is the process like for you guys?
For those big ones, normally about a day to write the script up between me or one of our two writers who puts it together. We'll actually, someone will spend an entire day writing up the script, and then I'll normally spend about 2 to 4 hours recording each portion of it. And then basically we send it over to the editor. It takes him about 2 days to get it banged out. The fastest we ever had a turnaround, we tried doing it within 24 hours for a little while. And that just killed the whole team because it takes like 2 or 3 days to properly do each one of those videos.
Oh yeah. No, that's impressive, man. Like I couldn't do that. Like I know we do our own little recaps, but it's usually like our top fives or something like that, and we just do little story descriptions here and there, and it's taxing. So my hat's off to you for not only writing those out and like recapping them, but also for like doing those awesome narrations. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. It's a lot more work than everyone thinks it is. Everyone assumes that we just open the book and we're just like, all right, let's go. No, not.
No.
We've tried that. It never works out.
No, I can imagine. Not to mention, there you go. Yeah, Marike. we got a comment from Marike Davis. It's like, show us the cat. So there you go.
The cat was looking. She was looking at these shelves like, I can make that jump.
Right. Yeah.
That's dangerous.
That is very dangerous. And those are nice ones too. Are those Sideshow collectibles behind you?
Yeah, I got into an argument with my wife a long time ago because I used to like to collect Funkos and stuff like that, but she's not a fan of the Funko design. So the argument was she'll let me buy any Sideshows I want, but she gets to pick how they get displayed. That was the arrangement.
Oh, hey. You know
I'm
what?
down with that.
Things to remember, things to kind of think of. I'll keep that in mind for my next move, actually. Shade Lunar Fang says, "You're amazing, Benny." All right, look at that.
Thank you.
This is going to be the Benny compliment hour. That's what's going to be. So we're going to dive into your Bloodshot story in a second, but we got to break for the bump, right? So we got our What's the Comic Shop segment. So we're going to take a little departure just to show you some cool graphics. And when we come back, we'll give you our picks for this week, including Benny's. All right, so Benny, feel free to jump in here whenever, but we're going to go around the room and kind of like talk about what books this week that we're interested in reading this week from our local comic shops. Ashton, I'm gonna let you go first.
Wait, real quick, hold on. You guys said interested in reading? Because I read a whole bunch of books right before this.
You stocked up already. You ran over.
Yeah.
Look, I had a moment yesterday where I actually went back and reread PREVIEWSworld.com/new releases. Shameless plug. And I was like, wait, I gotta call my comic shop right now because some of this stuff is not going into my pull box. So look, I understand a lot of cool stuff coming out this week. Ashton, maybe you can put us on to some cool stuff. What are you looking forward to this week?
Sure. So my pick this week is The Legend of Korra, Art of the Animated Series, hardcover from Dark Horse. This is a hardcover book that kind of walks you through hundreds of art pieces, concept art, all kinds of panels from book 1 of Legend of Korra Air. So the entire plot point with Amon and him trying to level out the playing field between benders and non-benders. So this walks you through kind of the creative process for that entire season, how they settled on character designs for a lot of these people, and kind of a look behind the scenes for how the animation comes together. Michael DiMartino and Brian Konietzko had a hand in this. It's all of their art. So it's really a boots on the ground look for like your true Avatar fan. And it makes a great, like, I know Troy's talked about this before. It makes like a good coffee table book. Like it's a nice centerpiece book. And then it also comes in a deluxe version if you want to take it that far. So it'll be in a slipcase with a commemorative lithograph and a special front cover. So if you want to go that deep into it, but I'm super excited about this. Like we talked about Avatar Studios last week on the show. So it kind of is just like everything's hitting at the right time. If you're an Avatar fan, the ball is really rolling, and I'm super excited to get my hands on this because this is actually a reprint. I totally missed this the first time around, so I'm excited to have a second crack at it.
Okay, actually, I now want to see the slipcase. I was joking last week. I like to nerd with my pinky out. So if it was me, I'd go for the slipcase. I'm just saying, Ashton. If it was me, I'd go for the slipcase. That's all I'm going to say. No, I love.
Don't encourage me. I didn't need that. I was already like the standard one is $40. The slipcase is $80, and now am I going to spend $80 on this? I might.
You are. You have to.
Yeah, no, I'm.
Why go? You can't go halfway. You got to get the slipcase. It's all about that fancy appearance, you know.
You're not wrong at all.
How else will we know if you're an Avatar fan, Ashton?
Exactly.
I mean,
Right.
No Good Comics says, Happy New Comic Book Day. Happy New Comic Book Day to you too, No Good Comics. I'm sure you got some good comics, so that's all good. Yeah, my pick this week. Actually, I actually want to point this out, Benny. Something I thought about actually while Ashton was talking about the Legend of Korra book is I love behind the scenes stuff, and like I always find it fascinating. You were talking about how they visualize different airbenders and stuff like that, or different bending, right, Ashton? That's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I love those things because it's proof that like they think about these things as much as we do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the creators do.
Right.
And like, I kind of like would imagine, Benny, that a lot of times when you're doing research for these stories and stuff like that, do you ever have those moments where you're like, well, damn, they thought about that, huh?
Yes, because I'll be doing a lot of the deep dive going into the history kind of stuff just to see if it all links together. I actually just had a whole discussion about that recently on one of my shows about how, like, what do you choose from the past and what is thought about by the creators? Like airbending, they all have to be individually different and have they all have to feel different. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to continuity, how far back do we actually go? Avatar is great because it's in its own little like bubble. You don't have to go 50 years in the past on it to make it all make sense.
Right. Not yet.
Yeah, not yet.
Don't.
I mean,
you don't want
nervous.
like 7 more avatars in like 2030 or whatever,
Do you know what though? Like they announced Avatar Studios last week. I sat on the show, talked about how excited I was. I was like, this is great. They can explore Aang as like a fully realized adult avatar. And I felt pretty confident in that. And then 2 days ago, I read an article that was like, maybe we should step away from Aang's story before we end up in a Luke Skywalker situation. And I was like, damn, that might be true.
Yeah,
I mean that's already the problem in Avatar. I'm not super deep into the Avatar fandom, but I already know the Korra versus Aang thing is like a huge debate. So
yeah.
So where do you fall on that debate, Ashton?
Aang.
Cool. Hey, look, I am in no place to judge, so it's all good. Real quick, I'm going to give you guys my pick, and then we're going to get Benny talking about this Bloodshot comic. All right, guys, I am so excited for this. I'm just stupidly excited for this. I'm not even going to lie. I always kind of had this attitude that like comics are good if Spider-Man's good. And there's nothing really to back this up. But it's just that, like, I feel like Spider-Man is like the basis for like the health of the industry. And the fact that there's a new book called Nonstop Spider-Man, I just am like head over heels in love with this book already. It was solicited like for last year. Of course, things got pushed back because of COVID. But the thing that you should be really excited about this book, because I know some people are like, well, it's another Spider-Man book. What's the big deal? It's Joe Kelly, who did a great run on Spider-Man Deadpool, and actually has a really great run on Deadpool itself. And Chris Bacalo, who's a great artist, and Dale Eaglesham, who's also another great artist, is also in this book. And it's got a David Finch cover. And the book's description on our website, which I love, is right up my alley. It's like, this book is not for the faint of heart, so check with your doctor before reading. Nonstop Spider-Man. I love I've seen, like, you can look at the preview pages on our website. The first page is Peter like jumping out of his apartment window, like trying to put his clothes on to get to something. And so it's just like, it's meant to be a high octane, like just full throttle experience. And it's perfect for this character because Spider-Man is like, just like a agile, high speed, like, fast, like, action-packed character when you really get down to it. So I'm really excited about this book. It's dropping today, and yeah, Nonstop Spider-Man from Marvel. I'm really excited to see where this is going, and I'm looking forward to following this every month. But Benny, what is your pick this week?
Well, Nonstop Spider-Man, actually, you kind of stole that thunder from me because I actually read through that before this. Without spoiling it, it is a lot of fun. It adds a lot of new lore to the Spider-Man mythos and stuff like that. And I loved the way they did it. The artwork's incredible. I loved that Spider-Man Deadpool run forever ago, and I don't know why Marvel doesn't want money and they don't want to continue that. but they decided to move over to doing nonstop Spider-Man. Other than, obviously Bloodshot number 12, where I got to write a backup story for it. I actually have, I did enjoy, and I won't go into why, but God of War Fallen God by Dark Horse it's bridging the gap of the two game franchises. So it kicks off pretty strong. I hope it goes in a good direction, but it kicks off pretty strong. But yeah, that I would have to say is my general pick outside of, the usual ones you'd see like Batman Urban Legends or Nonstop Spider-Man. So
cool. But you did mention Bloodshot number 12. So let's talk a little bit about that. So what can you tell us about Bloodshot number 12?
Well, it's the conclusion to Tim Seeley's actual whole run, and the way it was described is they're ending it right there, and that's why they wanted to put my story at the end of that to kind of bridge the gap into the next storyline that they're going to be covering in that.
Okay, nice.
So I was super excited to be able to write the backup portion of this to kind of give the new readers a jumping off point. If you're jumping into Bloodshot a little bit late, because Bloodshot with a lot of Valiant titles did hit quite a few delays during the pandemic situation, so it became a bit of a problem kind of keeping up with the release dates and stuff like that. But if you happen to fall off or you weren't keeping up with it, this is where the point of the story at the ending of this is a jumping on point for Bloodshot. So you can kind of come in here, read the backup, and get in right into Bloodshot number 13.
Awesome.
Okay. So how did you get involved in this with Valiant?
Well, so that's what I was telling before the show started. It's a little bit of an interesting story. This was actually about 3 or 4 years ago when they wanted to relaunch Bloodshot initially. I had been expressing, because I had a few friends with the former Valiant, I guess, staff that worked there, and I was expressing that I was interested in getting involved in actually writing comics as opposed to just doing the YouTube side of things, but I wasn't sure how much time it would take, if I could devote the time to it and stuff like that. And they pitched over, well, is there any character you'd want to write in Valiant that you may want to dip your toes in with a one-shot or a backup? And I told them I would love to write Bloodshot or Eternal Warrior. And so they said they're going to be doing a relaunch of Bloodshot. They could throw this into the new comic book day as like a good jumping on point, recap the entire Bloodshot history, and give me a chance to write this story right there. So we wrote the story, and then a whole bunch of things that we don't need to go into on here went down at Valiant, and they changed around their staff, and the story kind of disappeared. Like, I was already done, paid, and everything, and then they just didn't print it. And it was like about 6 months ago, I hit them up just randomly, like, hey, can I just tell a story on my YouTube channel about how I got to write a Bloodshot comic that never got released? And they were surprised it existed, and now it's in a book.
Amazing.
They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, yeah, I have the pages. Do you want to see them?
You guys don't have them? Okay.
Yeah. So we went back and forth for a little while, and eventually they were like, yeah, 12 is going to end Tim Seeley's current story arc, so we'd love to get it in there to catch people up and get them involved for Bloodshot moving forward.
Cool.
So this was this your first comic script, or had you been working on other things?
Outside of pitches and stuff, this is the first one that we've actually gotten published and printed, and I'm proud of. I mean, I've done a few things. I think every comic book fan writes their own personal indie stuff here and there, and their own little pitches, but this is the first official one.
Cool.
That's so exciting. So any plans to do more on the horizon?
I'd love to, and I'm hoping that this sells well enough that I will. I mean, like I said, this was written years ago, so it wasn't exactly the original plan right now, but I'm 100% to try and get involved more into the world of comic books. This did reignite my passion for wanting to write comics, so I'm hoping it can go somewhere.
Nice. Well, you've definitely done the time. I mean, you've been recapping other people's stuff for years. So.
The only thing I'm worried about is if I get into like maybe an ongoing gig or something like that, well, now someone else is going to pick apart my stuff like I did.
Yeah, right.
Oh, no. Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Right. It's a vicious circle, right?
Yeah. There would be a new Comicstorian.
Right. Comicstorian.
Oh, that's a lot.
I know, right? So, actually, I'm curious. What did you think of the Bloodshot movie, Betty? Did you get a chance to see it? Have you seen it yet?
I thought it was pretty fun. I thought it was a good start for the character. I liked seeing Vin Diesel in a superhero role. I mean, I enjoyed all of his Fast and the Furious superhero movies. So I definitely was excited to see him in the Bloodshot role. Come on. We all know it's true. Nobody's kicking missiles or jumping cars between buildings. That's a superpower that no one's mentioning.
Right. Actually, if I could derail this for a second just to talk about this, because this is my favorite topic. I noted like a long time ago, like characters that operate outside of the law, they're being they're persecuted by the law at all times, right? Like, and on top of that, their leader is a bald head dude. I was like, is Fast and Furious the X-Men? Is that what it's like?
It's funny because I think it was last year right before the pandemic hit, but I caught up on all the Fast and the Furious is because I was like, I like cars, but I watched the first 2 movies and they're okay. And everyone's like, no, you have to watch at movie 4, they turn into superheroes. And I'm like, no, they don't turn into superheroes. And by 5, they're like flinging volts around on the streets and steering them into cop cars. And you're just like, okay, yeah, no, it's a superhero movie. I mean,
yeah, it is. It is totally. Actually, no, I forgot. The third thing was characters coming back from the dead. That was the other thing too.
Oh,
like
yeah.
Han's back now.
Han's back. We thought Michelle Rodriguez was dead, and then she came back. Like, you know, what I mean?
She had
like,
amnesia.
she had amnesia, right? I'm like, this is freaking X-Men now. I don't know when this happened, but whatever.
I'm surprised because they've leaned into it so hard. I'm surprised there's not a scene of like Vin Diesel like looking at like a Batman costume and he's just like, no, it's not time.
Right, with a V symbol right in the middle. I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, I guess that's what he's got the Triple X franchise for. No Good Comics says, Benny, who's your biggest inspiration for being a writer? Oh, that's a good question. Thank you.
Well, honestly, I'm a huge fan of Scott Snyder's, the way that he writes his comic book stories out. And so basically, I'd say he's probably my biggest inspiration for the way he does that, like noir kind of creepy-ish. He somehow can make a story creepy that is not supposed to be creepy.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I liked the idea that he looks at a story from a different point of view while trying to tell you the story that you're expecting. And that was what I tried to do with the Bloodshot years ago when I was writing it. I wanted to tell a story that you're expecting. You're expecting Comicstorian to recap, but how could I do it and it, surprise you? So I'd say he's probably the biggest inspiration for the direction I'm trying to take my writing.
All right, cool. Awesome. Well, there you go, guys. Bloodshot number 12 is in comic shops today. You can pick it up, and I believe there's 2 different covers for this bad boy, so definitely check that out. And Benny's story is the backup in this issue, so you'll get all caught up on the coming and goings of Bloodshot if you pick up that issue. And now we're going to show you guys what's at comic shops. Right, here's a couple other items that are available at your local comic shop, some of which we've already talked about, but here's a few other things on top of that. Check out.
Hey Previews World, Mia here. Do you know what new comics are coming out this week? No? Well, let's take a look. Is that it? No way. Your comic shop has something for every type of customer. So stop at a comic shop today, and I'll see you back here next week.
All right, and thank you to Anna Mia for making those videos happen every single week. You can catch that video on our YouTube every Monday. It's called What's at Comic Shops, and Mia's always hosted with a rundown of some of the featured items available at your local comic shop that week. That's not everything. That's only a little bit of what your local comic shop has, but those are like some of the big ticket items. I'm really looking forward to this Carmen book too. I got to point out, like it's Gilliam March of Catwoman infamy. He's got a very unique style. He's a Spanish artist writer, and he's got this interesting book that's kind of like a fantasy book about an angel who stops a girl from committing suicide and kind of takes her under her wing. But it looks gorgeous. So yeah, definitely check that out. It's from Image Comics as well. So things that happened this week in the world of comics. Are you a big Attack on Titan fan? Have you done do you do recaps of manga at all, Benny?
We weren't happy with it. So we had to stop.
Oh, you said you used to do it?
Yeah, we used to do it a long time ago. We had a whole channel for it called Comicstorian. But we can't communicate with people who don't speak our language. So it became a problem in the long run. But I did do Attack on Titan, and I'm a huge fan of it. So
okay, cool. So you might want to know this then. There's actually an Attack on Titan book that Kodansha is putting out, and it's meant to be basically Titan reading size, if you understand what that means, right? So of course the Titans in Attack on Titan are like terrorize these villages and these towns on the TV show. Now that the book is about to do a big recap, the book is about to to end. Like the Kodansha's doing this like Titan-sized version of the first couple of chapters, and so this is from Sora News 24. This colossal comic with his cover in place measures 101 centimeters, 3.3 feet in length by 71.5 centimeters in width, which Kodansha says is larger than the current Guinness World Records holder for largest comic book. It contains Attack on Titan's first 2 chapters, but don't expect to read it while lying in bed, since it weighs 13.7 kilograms, which is 30.2 pounds. I'm glad they clarified that, because I don't know how to do metrics. Attack on Titan is a constant bestseller, but Kodansha realized that this is something for only the hardest of hardcore fans. And so only 100 copies of the Titan-size Attack on Titan will be printed, priced at 150,000 yen, or $1,449. So there you go.
That's a bit much for. I was about to say I might take the challenge and try to read it in bed and just hold it over my head.
Right. And they get crushed by it. Like how like, the ultimate irony. Comicstorian killed by manga. But I'm not even sure if we're actually going to get this through Diamond. I imagine if there's only 100 copies, it's probably only available through Japan, even though they gave us the American US price. But still, it's kind of interesting. I thought it was pretty cool, worth pointing out, because the book's about to wrap up, and they're trying to commemorate it in a very unique way. And I also think it's really clever that a Titan-size, a Titan readable version of Attack on Titan is pretty hilarious.
It's clever.
It's clever. It's good. So another book that's out from Valiant Comics, is coming out from Valiant Comics, another one of their staples, is actually Shadow Man. So we have a trailer for you guys, and when we come back, I'll explain a little bit more about this new series coming from Valiant. Check it out. And I know typically we show you guys a trailer from books out this week, but that's actually dropping April 28th. That's from Cullen Bunn, who's actually he actually just did a cool Cyberpunk 2077 comic, but he's mostly known for books like Herald County. He does a lot of horror stuff, so he's right at home here. And on top of that, there's John Davis Hunt, who did a book that I loved called Wildstorm. He's also the artist behind Clean Room, and that's coming from Valiant this April. So definitely keep an eye on that and let your local comic shop know that you want to pre-order. No Good Comics is back. Shadow Man looks awesome. Yes, it does. Thank you very much, No Good Comics. I just realized it's not No Good Comics. It's No Good Comics. Okay, gotcha.
Reading is important.
I thought you were just playing on the words earlier. I didn't realize you actually thought it was no.
No, I just totally misread it and just kept it going. See, Benny's a pro at this. Benny's like, he's going to sit there and recap, and like he's got the voice for it and all this other stuff. The rest of us are just stumbling along, trying to get through this stuff. So it's
I wish that was. I consider myself stumbling up the stairs. That's basically how I do it.
Respect.
Total respect. So it's time for Social Swamp. I'm gonna fork it over to Ashton, and she's going to address this week's topic. So hey, let's go.
So March is Women in Comics Month, so we are celebrating women in comics all month long. It will be in the Previews catalog, and it is on the Previews website right now. So we asked you guys to tell us who your favorite female creator is, past or present, in comics. Shout them out, shout their work out that you particularly liked, and we will feature some of them on the show. So let's dive into your guys' picks. Sarah says, Marguerite Bennett. I love DC Bombshells and her run on Batwoman. Dean says, China Clungston Flores for her excellent Blue Monday series. Manga-style nostalgia and music references got me hooked on these fun adventures. Also, Marguerite Bennett for her Josie update and Bombshells, of course. Rat-Eyed Blue says, Ann Nocenti, she captures humanity better than anyone I have read during the 3 decades of my reading comics. She made Longshot one of my all-time favorites due to his naiveness and compassion. Her run of Daredevil is a full lesson of struggle, mental health, politics, and the flaws people live with.
I love that one. Thank you for the shout out to Ann Nocenti.
April says some of my favorites: Rumiko Takahashi, Gail Simone, Barbara Kessel, and Louise Simonson all have drawn me into the world of their comics.
All right, come through with the old school guys. Thank you.
Mary says Tess Gutierrez, talented, thoughtful, strong-hearted artist. Her work is amazing and gorgeous. Autumn says G. Willow Wilson and Marjorie Liu. Annie is a kitty says Joella Jones has art that can't be beaten. Ramona Fradden, who is still doing commissions at 94. Amanda Connor, who is a cornerstone of female creators in the industry. And Jenny Frison, whose covers astound me every month.
Actually, that's no lie. Jenny Frison, I swear she has a new cover every month. maybe 3 or 4. Like but they always look great, which I can't hate on it at all. Benny, so what is your you want to shout out some female creators in the comics industry that you are a fan of?
They're not too many deep dives. I have a bad habit of kind of just following what people are doing at the exact moment and then just moving on to the next thing with the amount of books I read. But I was actually a huge fan of Kelly Thompson's Deadpool run and what she's doing with Black Widow right now. I'm actually really sad that her Deadpool run ended early. And then in the last issue, she did nothing but make fun of the fact it was ending early and none of her plans got to be finished by having Deadpool shout it all out. It was hilarious.
That's kind of the book to do that in, right?
Yeah, the whole book is like, we were going to have dragons, but here's King and Black dragons, and we were going to do this, and it's not related to King and Black, but I'm stuck doing King and Black.
That's actually pretty clever. Yeah, shout out to Kelly Thompson. Ashton, what about you? What female creators would you like to shout out?
Yeah, so everyone said Marguerite Bennett, but nobody mentioned Animosity, which I really liked. Of course, I feel like I have to mention Alice Oseman just because, I feel like her Heartstopper story, took me by storm, and I've talked about it so much, but I think she does a really good job of finding a crossroads of talking about very important issues and addressing things like homophobia and mental health and self-harm in ways that feel relatable but not daunting, and important but not daunting. And I think that you need to do that to kind of decrease the stigma. So I really like the way that she's been able to handle that with grace. And then I have not read any of her stories, but I know that Mirka Andolfo's art is insane. I see the cover to Mercy anytime it comes out and I'm blown away by it.
Yeah.
I agree with that one. I found her when they put out Unnatural. I liked the idea. I loved the story with Unnatural. It's a really good, and it's the kind of book I normally wouldn't read, just because it's anthropomorphic animals, stuff like that, and just the artwork hooked me, and then the story was really interesting, and I've followed that one for quite a while.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you. Ashton, we always joke about this privately, but I've also said this on the show. I like Unnatural. Unnatural looks cool, and I was a little put off because I'm oh god, this is a furry book. Right?
I was trying not to use the terminology because it always leads down the rabbit hole.
Right? Yeah.
Every time I would recommend it on my show, people are like, "Oh, Betty's a furry now." I'm like, "No, I really want to promote this book, but stop, please."
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, exactly.
I got to pull the Seinfeld and say not that there's anything wrong with that. But I think once I started to see her work on Mercy, I was like, okay, I feel safe to like this now.
Right.
My shout outs, I wanted to choose, there's a lot of names, and I wanted to choose somebody whose name I know I've seen a lot, but somebody that I probably haven't read a lot about. And so I wanted to give a shout out to Bobby Chase, who was a Marvel editor in the 80s and 90s. She, editors don't get a lot of credit, but she did stuff for Marvel Comics. She did stuff for DC. She wrote some stuff for Marvel Comics Presents. And she did, she was an editor on big titles. She wasn't just editing, female comics or anything like that. She was doing Hulk and Thor and G.I. Joe. Yesterday, actually, I just discovered Rachel Pollack, who I didn't even know wrote Doom Patrol and New Gods. Particularly, I think she wrote Doom Patrol right after Grant Morrison. And I also want to give a shout out to Jackie Orms, who we actually have featured on our website, PREVIEWSworld.com/Women in Comics month, Women in Comics month. She was a 1940s African-American cartoonist, and she kind of got swept up in the Red Scare McCarthy era investigations because of her politics. But even during that time, she was a cartoonist for a lot of African-American newspapers, and that she did that for about over 20 solid years. And that's a little bit of history that not a lot of people talked about. But fortunately, there's a book out about her right now, and it's called Jackie Orms, the first African-American woman cartoonist. So let your local comic shop know that you want to check that out and read about that and get a little bit of comic book history. Why the heck not? All right. So, have you been reading WandaVision, Benny? I mean, have you been watching WandaVision?
I have been reading WandaVision, which is weird. It's not in print anymore.
Well, actually, no. I'm glad you brought that up because I did notice that like a lot of the vision. So we're about to do a panel episode. We do this weekly book club show called The Panel, and last week we were trying to. Well, a couple of weeks ago we were trying to get copies of Vision by Tom King. That was going to be the topic, and we couldn't find any copies, so we had to like move heaven and earth to make that happen. A lot of the Scarlet Witch Vision books are out of print right now. Like that's a real thing. Like the
they never did well.
Yeah,
they just never did. It's history and comics, and they just vanished.
Yeah.
I've tried to get myself a couple copies of Vision, and it's not happening.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I can only imagine how much those are going for right now. But the series just ended. It was a big finale. I've heard a lot of mixed feelings about it, and I've kind of had to reevaluate based off of some of the stuff I've read. But Benny, can you hot take for us? What was your opinion of the WandaVision finale?
I feel like WandaVision, it's the beginning of a problem that we've been having recently with a lot of these long form TV shows, which have led to YouTubers who are really annoying, making theory videos about things. We've hit a point where these theory videos and these theory comments on Twitter and these leaks from the set are now beginning to ruin it for people who get that involved into it.
Yeah,
and I feel like that's the problem with WandaVision, because if you just look at WandaVision as a whole and you don't read into a lot of these theories and stuff like that, basically what it boils down to is I think the show was great. It was a good show about her getting over her pain and trauma, trying to create a world that she wanted to live in, but it just fell apart, and is a good show. I loved it.
Yeah. No, it's like I'm glad you brought that up, because that was definitely something I was going to touch on. Is this idea that people kept misquoting Elizabeth Olsen and saying that she said that there's going to be a Luke Skywalker like cameo at the end of the show. But actually, if you actually read the article that actually said that, it's what the person who wrote the article said. And then they quoted something that she said that was kind of semi-related, but not at all in line with that. And, I also go back to I know a lot of people, including myself, were speculating about the X-Men, or at least mutants being introduced through this show. And, I realized after the show was over, it's like, wait a minute. Marvel Studios told us months ago, when they acquired the X-Men, that they weren't focusing on that. They're trying to get through the next cycle of stories that they've already prepared before they got 20th Century Fox back into the mix. So the waters are tainted. The waters are muddled. I'm glad you pointed that out, because I think there's a big difference between what Betty does, and what we do. And even though we were kind of part of the problem for a couple of weeks,
I made the joke as a stab at myself, because we do the exact same thing. We'll have all these fun theories. I normally preface a lot of my theories by going, here's what I actually think is going to happen, but here's what I would love to have happen. I'd love Magneto to show up, and Professor X is all, and just all X-Men now. But at the beginning, I was thinking, I have a weird feeling nothing big is going to happen, because I have a feeling it would undercut what they're trying to tell with Wanda. And they don't want to do that. So at the beginning, I said, I'm going to have fun theorizing, but I don't think we're going to get X-Men. I don't think we're going to get Doctor Strange. And if we do get anything, it's going to be a post-credit scene. It'll be way after everything.
Yeah. We kind of did this to ourselves.
Exactly.
I totally co-sign you on that one. I had to kind of check my feelings after. It was like, that finale wasn't that great. And then I was like, well, wait a minute. Is this my fault? Is this because I got swept up in all this? I'm actually
You wanted Quicksilver, not Ralph Boner. That's what you wanted.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you. Yes, that is absolutely true. I at least wanted some knowledge of the multiverse, and they kind of threw that out. And then Darcy just kind of disappeared at the end. It was just weird. It kind of had a little bit of stop and go. But Johnny, I want to bring Johnny in here, because Johnny has always participated in our WandaVision conversation. So I want to know how Johnny feels, because Johnny, I think, was the most excited out of between me and Matt. So what's going on, Johnny?
I feel like right now I'm suffering from post-WandaVision loss syndrome, something like that. So I'm going to agree with Benny. I feel like as much as we would have liked to have seen, the introduction of the multiverse and the nexus of all realities, and all of a sudden, the X-Men are going to show up, and Quicksilver, or Evan Peters' version of Quicksilver appearing was going to be the reasoning for that, or verify that. I think it's best that it didn't happen, because that would have just taken away from Wanda's story and dealing with the grief that she was processing. If all of a sudden the X-Men come in and it just doesn't become about her story. It becomes about them. So
Yeah.
I think overall it was a good story. And we were saying this before the show started. I really like what Marvel does in terms of pulling different storylines from different arcs to create a cohesive narrative. That it just seems to flow properly. It just is really good. Even the Ship of Theseus discussion was, I believe, from a Mark Waid storyline.
Yeah. Actually, I have the Games Radar article. I actually did not read this run of Avengers, and this is like fairly recent. This is like 2017, I think. But yeah, it's that line comes from so there's a scene in the show where the newly formed White Vision, right, and like Wanda's like apparition Vision kind of like butt heads, and then Vision, Wanda's Vision, like kind of rationalizes with him using the Ship of Theseus from literature inside a library, which I thought was also very clever, to kind of explain to him like, well, look, we're both Vision, so like let's like have some common understanding here. And so Games Radar did this actually pretty good article where they were talking about it was inspired by 2017's Avengers Volume 7, Number 6 by artist Mike DeMundo and writer Mark Waid in the final chapter of a story arc pitting the Avengers' mightiest heroes against their longtime foe, the time-traveling Kang. The context of Waid's original scene was different than Wanda's visions, and the comic book story seen here, and Johnny's got it up right now, the present-day Vision expresses being disconcerted by meeting himself from the end of time and learning he'll outlive everyone he knows and loves. So yeah, the context was different, but the fact that they were able to kind of pluck that out and like apply that to the story, I thought was pretty interesting. So, and it was like very clever. I definitely had this moment when I was watching. I was thinking, I was like, this is actually really well done. Like this particular scene is really well done. And then to find out it came from the comics, I was like, well, of course.
Yeah.
You know, like not to throw Hollywood under the bus, but at the same time, I'm like, I feel like this is something that a comic book writer would think through. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What were you about to say, Benny?
I was gonna say it's interesting when it comes to that because you're literally quoting where that line came from. Throughout my comments, I get a lot of people who are constantly saying things along the lines of like, "Well, WandaVision isn't inspired by any comic book," and it's like, no, it's probably about 3 different comic books meshed into one to create what you're enjoying.
Oh, yeah.
And I agree. That's what I love that Marvel does because since the beginning of the MCU, you can't go into any of these movies or watch any of these shows or shorts or anything and know what to expect.
Right,
it's always a problem I have when they do a direct adaptation. You go into it, you're like, oh, well, here's the scene where this is happening. Like you don't have any idea at this point. And I loved that. I've always loved how they do that.
I think it also debunks this attitude that I've seen a lot of people say like, oh, you can't please fans. They always want it just like the comic book and whatnot. But Marvel for the last 12 years, like you said, has been kind of hodgepodging storylines to try to create a cohesive whole. So yeah, sometimes that's not always the answer. Sometimes we don't want an exact thing. We do want to be surprised by it, and we want to kind of experience it like anew, like despite the fact that we've read these before. So, but yeah, I say all that to say, Johnny, do you have the Captain America meme that I sent you earlier?
Yes, I do. Give me 1 second. There it is.
There you go. I think that sums it up perfect.
What I do hope is that this is going to give people a better expectation going into Falcon Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
We're going to have our fun with our theories, but I'm hoping that we won't, because this reminded me of the ending of Game of Thrones, and that's a whole different debate in itself. But we got to the ending and everyone had 1,000 theories that they thought was going to play out, and then they were all disappointed we didn't get any of them.
Yeah.
Can I like throw in a hot take for a minute?
Yeah, what are you about to say, Ashton?
Doesn't it kind of feel like that's, to me, as someone that didn't watch the show at all, that to me kind of sounds like a self-inflicted problem on Marvel's part. And because you have all of these, every movie you go to see, there's something crazy at the end and some like wild post-credit scene and you walk out like, oh my God. And now you're doing a complete 180 from the format you've been using and people are confused by it. That kind of sounds like it's your own fault to me.
Well, I think you were saying self-inflicted based on the viewer. I don't think it was Marvel's problem. I think it's just like,
I don't know that it's necessarily Marvel. Like, I don't know. Okay, maybe I'll walk that back. That's not necessarily like Marvel specific, but there's whatever that relationship is between the viewer and Marvel and what they're expecting from Marvel content wasn't this, and where that blame falls, I guess, is up for interpretation. But it has to do with the way you were consuming it before and the way it's being presented now.
No, I think that's, I mean, yeah, I think we're kind of all kind of saying the same thing for different, but like coming from different angles on it. But yeah, I think that there's definitely some self-inflicted wounding happening here.
Yes.
And I'm ashamed of myself because, like I said, I got wrapped up in it, and I'm like, I knew that they said they weren't going to put mutants on until much later, and I still got sucked into the speculation.
Towards the end, I was starting to lean into like, okay, please be true, and then it obviously didn't pan out. But it was by episode 8 that I'm like, we're not getting anything. You're not gonna cram in all like the White Vision and regular Vision. You're not gonna do any like just resolve Hayward. You're not gonna resolve Agatha and Wanda. Like 9 is not gonna do what everyone wants. I expected that at the end of 8 because we had gone way too long for them not to even say the word mutant.
Yeah, exactly. Ashton, actually, speaking of WandaVision, do you have this week's poll?
I do have this week's poll.
Yeah.
So in this entire conversation, like Troy said, there's been a lot of mixed feelings about the WandaVision finale. So we took it to the Free Comic Book Day Twitter page with a poll. Tell us how you felt about the finale. It was great. It was terrible. Meh. Middle of the road.
What's everybody saying, Johnny? Actually, Johnny, where do you fall? You kind of already told us. But...
See, initially when we came up with this idea, I thought that the third choice was going to be where the F was Mephisto.
Or the poll is Mephisto.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm just going to go ahead and answer. I loved it. I thought it was great. I'm like we've said before, I'm a fan of anything that is comic book related to show up in another medium. So I was great. And 59.4% of people are agreeing. Matt was okay with 34%, and 6.6% see it was terrible and just have no taste whatsoever.
See, I think
okay, that was a hot take.
I think, but there's a valuable lesson in this, right? And I think every now and then the internet proves my point, which is that just because a lot of people talk loudly about something, about how much they hate something, doesn't mean that is true of the majority of the fan base. You know what I mean? So yeah, just something to keep in mind. Like, a lot of people enjoyed it, and for a lot of people, what they got was enough, and they're going to keep on watching. So there you go. Comic shop shout out time before we walk out of here, Ashton. Who's our comic shop shout out for this week?
This week's comic shop shout out goes to The Comic Shop in Wilmington, Delaware. Comes from our friend Jimmy. If you want to have us shout out your comic shop on the show, find us, tag your shop. If they don't have a handle, just leave their name. Also use the hashtag #SupportYourLCS, and we will find your post. We will shout out your shop on the show and give them some love.
Absolutely. So yes, thank you very much for doing that. And thank you very much, Benny, for joining us this week on the show, man. I really appreciate it.
Oh, not a problem. It's been a blast. You guys are great to talk to.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad you could geek out with us. I much appreciate it. I know people know where to find you, but can you just go ahead and just drop your credentials real quick?
Comicstorian, not comic historian, Comicstorian. You Google it and it comes up all over the place.
All right. Perfect. There you go. There's a YouTube right there. And that's true on Instagram and Twitter, if I recall correctly, and Facebook too. So
we have it all.
Yep.
And
Got
Twitch.
It all. And Twitch. There you go. And hey guys, that's it for this week's episode of PREVIEWSworld Weekly. I want to remind you to like, follow, subscribe. We keep getting people in our comments who are like, this show's so good. Why doesn't it have more followers? It's like, well, just keep telling people about it. Like spread the love, let people know. And like, follow, and subscribe, because that's how the YouTube game is played. This Thursday, so tomorrow, the panel. Anamia is going to have a group of readers and fans and comic book aficionados. They're going to talk about Tom King's Division with Gabriel Hernandez Walta. It's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of an interesting conversation. Johnny's going to be part of that conversation because he's definitely a huge fan of this story arc. And definitely check that out. That's tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern and 12 p.m. Pacific, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's 12, yes.
Yes. Okay. And thank you, Johnny. Johnny's like he's like the angel or the devil popping up on his shoulder, depending on what he's going to say. And Women in Comics Month. Our section is up all month long. We're going to be updating it for the rest of March. I mentioned the Jackie Orms piece. There's another great one with Priscilla Petriates, who did the book Chariot. She gives us a rundown of like her artistic process behind the book. All you have to do is go to PREVIEWSworld.com/Women in Comics Month, and you'll see a bunch of cool interviews and a bunch of spotlights on women creators. And also, I got a point, speaking of women creators, we're going to have Amanda Connor on next week with Jimmy Palmiotti, and they're going to talk about their new Vampirella series dropping. And again, like, follow, subscribe. And hey, guys, that's it for PREVIEWSworld Weekly. Again, thanks to Benny, and I am one of your hosts, Troy Jeffrey Allen.
I'm your other host, Ashton Greenwood.
And we will see you guys at the Spinner Rack. Catch you later.
Don't forget that you can catch Previews World Weekly streaming live every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific at Previews World on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch.